James was a man who loved old vehicles. He was quiet and friendly, and he worked as a mechanic in a small town. One day at a local auction, he saw an old camper van. It looked a little worn and dusty, but James saw something special in it. Decided to buy it for a very low price. He wanted to fix it and use it for camping trips. The camper was not just any ordinary camper. It was large and strong, painted white with a few blue stripes. The outside looked normal, but inside, it held secrets that James did not know about. The previous owner had told him it was just an old camper used by a government agency, but James thought that was just a story to make it seem interesting. He did not look closely inside because it seemed old and dusty. James took the camper to his small garage and started cleaning it. He fixed the seats, checked the engine, and cleaned the windows. He was happy to have a camper that he could use for his weekend trips to the mountains. He dreamed of sleeping under the stars, cooking food outside, and enjoying the fresh air. James had a friend named Karen. Karen was a lively woman who worked in marketing. She loved adventure and often talked about taking a vacation to relax. Karen and James had known each other for years. They trusted each other and often helped one another. Karen knew about James's camper, and one day she asked him if she could borrow it for a week. She wanted to take her family on a vacation, but did not have her own camper. James was happy to lend it to her. He knew Karen was responsible and careful. He told her to take good care of it. Karen was excited and promised she would. She planned to drive the camper to a quiet national park where she could spend time with her husband and 2 children. Wanted to take them away from the busy city for a few days? Karen packed the camper with all the things she thought they would need: clothes, food, camping chairs, and toys for the children. She checked everything twice. She was looking forward to the trip and told her friends that this would be the best vacation they had in years. She did not think about the camper's past or any secrets inside it. For her, it was just a big vehicle that would carry her family safely. When the day came, Karen arrived at James's garage early in the morning. James showed her how to operate some of the camper's features. He pointed to the water tank, the stove, and the small fridge. Karen listened carefully, trying to remember all the details. Then she hugged James and said, "Thank you so much. I promise we will have a great time." As Karen started the engine, James watched her drive away, smiled, and felt happy to help his friend. He did not know that this simple act would soon lead to an unusual adventure. Karen's family was full of excitement as they began their journey. The children looked out of the windows, pointing at trees, birds, and other cars. Karen's husband drove carefully on the highway, enjoying the quiet morning. The road was long, but the camper was comfortable. Inside the camper, strange things were happening. The equipment James thought was old and useless suddenly began to react. Lights flickered on and off for no reason. A hidden panel in the kitchen slid open slightly and then closed. Karen heard quiet sounds like something moving inside the walls. She stopped to check, but she found nothing unusual. She thought it might be the camper settling or old wires causing problems. As they traveled deeper into the countryside, the camper's mysterious features became harder to ignore. Karen began to feel a little nervous, but she did not tell her family. She wanted to enjoy the trip and not worry them. Instead, she tried to figure out what was causing these strange events. Back in James's town, a man named Mark was working late at the DEA office. Mark was an agent who had spent years working on drug investigations. One day he came across a report about a missing government vehicle, a camper van used by the DEA as a mobile lab many years ago. The camper had disappeared during an investigation, and the agency lost track of it. Mark was curious, asked around, and learned that the camper was last seen in the area where Karen was traveling. The news surprised him. The camper could still have sensitive equipment inside, and if it fell into the wrong hands, it would be dangerous. Mark decided to track down the camper. He checked the roads, talked to local police, and used the agency's technology to find its location. As he worked, he noticed the camper moving toward the national park. Karen was unaware of the chase behind her. She continued her trip, trying to relax and enjoy the fresh air. But she started noticing the strange man in the unmarked SUV that appeared on the road behind her. Sometimes he was close, other times he kept his distance. Karen felt a little scared but tried to stay calm. She told her husband about the man, and they agreed to keep an eye on him. They did not want to cause trouble but wanted to stay safe. One night, they stopped at a quiet campsite. Karen and her family sat outside, making a small fire and roasting marshmallows. The children laughed and played, feeling safe in the camper. But Karen could not forget the man who had been following them. Suddenly, the man approached the camper, showed his badge, and said he was with the DEA. Karen was shocked. She did not know what to think. The man explained that the camper was government property and could have dangerous equipment inside. Karen felt confused and scared. She wondered how she could have borrowed a secret government vehicle. The man, Agent Mark, asked her not to touch anything inside and to help the agency recover the camper safely. Karen agreed, though nervous. She wanted to protect her family and do the right thing. The camper, that once was just a fun vehicle for her vacation, had turned into something much more serious. Karen could hardly believe what Agent Mark had just told her. She stared at him, her mind racing to understand the strange situation. The camper she had borrowed for a peaceful family vacation was actually a secret mobile lab once used by the DEA. She felt a mix of fear and confusion. How could she have been driving around with such a powerful and hidden vehicle without knowing? Mark saw the worry on Karen's face and spoke calmly. "I know this is a lot to take in. The camper was part of an undercover operation years ago. Some equipment was never removed. We want to make sure nothing dangerous is left inside, and no one else finds it." Karen nodded slowly. She wanted to protect her family, but she also wanted to understand more. "Is it safe to be inside?" she asked. "Yes, but please do not touch anything. Need to check the equipment carefully," Mark answered. "We will work together to secure it." Karen's husband, David, joined them outside the camper. He looked serious, but calm. "What kind of equipment? Is it dangerous?" Mark explained that the camper contained testing devices, communication gear, and secret compartments that agents once used to study illegal drugs. It was no longer active, but some parts could be sensitive or cause problems if tampered with. Karen took a deep breath. She remembered the strange noises and flickering lights she had noticed. Now it made sense. The camper was still reacting to old power sources inside. That night, Karen and her family stayed close to the camper while Mark and his team examined it. They brought special tools and opened hidden panels one by one. The inside was full of gadgets, wires, and small machines that looked complicated. Karen's children watched curiously, but were told to stay safe and away from the equipment. David helped Mark carry some boxes outside so they could study the contents better. As the team worked, Karen began to feel a strange mix of excitement and nervousness. This was not the vacation she had planned, but it was an adventure unlike any other. The next morning, Mark explained the plan. "We will need to transport the camper back to the DEA facility, but we must be careful. Some people might want to steal the equipment or use it for bad reasons." Karen nodded. She felt responsible now. "What can I do to help?" "Just stay close to your family and stay calm. We will protect you," Mark said. "We are also watching for anyone who might. Follow us." Karen noticed the man in the unmarked SUV was still nearby. He seemed to be watching them closely. Mark said, "That could be someone interested in the camper's secrets. We need to be cautious." The day passed slowly. Karen's family tried to enjoy the small campsite despite the tension. The children played near the fire, and David cooked some food. Karen kept looking around, worried about the strange man and the hidden dangers. Suddenly, a car with tinted windows appeared on the road near the camp. It was not a police car or a camper like theirs. The driver seemed to watch them carefully. Karen's heart beat faster. Mark and his team noticed too. They quickly prepared to move the camper. "We have to leave now," Mark said quietly. "It's not safe to stay here." Karen helped pack up their things quickly. She felt the weight of the situation. What had started as a happy vacation was now a mission to protect a secret and keep her family safe as they drove away. The strange car followed them closely. Karen looked in the rearview mirror and saw the tinted windows moving behind them like a shadow. She held David's hand tightly, feeling both fear and determination. Mark spoke calmly but firmly. Stay focused. We will get through this. The camper's hidden features became useful during the escape. Mark knew how to use secret compartments to hide equipment, and he guided Karen on safe roads to avoid attention. Karen was surprised by how much the camper still had to offer, had tools and safety devices she had never seen before. It felt like the camper had a mind of its own, protecting them. Hours passed, and the strange car stayed behind, but kept following. Mark's team contacted local law enforcement and asked for help. A police car soon joined the chase, giving them a sense of relief. Karen's family stayed close inside the camper.
The children were tired but calm,
sensing the seriousness but trusting the adults. Finally, they reached a secure DEA facility far from the campsite. The camper was parked inside a locked garage. Mark thanked Karen and her family for their cooperation. Karen felt exhausted but relieved. She realized how lucky they were to be safe. The adventure was far from over, but at least for now, they were out of immediate danger. Later, explained that the DEA would remove all the remaining equipment and make sure the camper could no longer cause problems. Karen asked if she could keep the camper, but Mark said it was now government property again. Karen understood. She smiled and said, "Well, it was the most exciting vacation we ever had." David laughed. That's for sure. The story of Karen and the camper was now a secret between them and the DEA. But for Karen, it was a reminder that sometimes ordinary things can hide extraordinary stories. After the camper was safely inside the DEA facility, Karen thought the adventure might be over. She and her family were tired and eager to return home, but Agent Mark explained that their journey was far from finished. The camper was important, and they needed to make sure it did not fall into the wrong hands. Mark invited Karen and her family to stay in a safe place nearby, while the DEA worked on the camper. Promised they would be protected. Karen agreed, though she worried about her children and the strange men who seemed interested in the camper. One afternoon, while Karen was talking with Mark, a new message arrived. It was urgent. Someone had seen suspicious people near the last campsite. These people did not belong to the police or the DEA. They were likely from a rival group, possibly a drug cartel, trying to find the camper and its equipment. Karen's heart sank. She never imagined that borrowing a camper could lead to such danger. Mark told her to stay calm, but be ready. The situation was serious. That night, Karen's family stayed inside a secure building, with agents guarding the doors. Karen tried to keep the children calm by telling them stories and playing games, but she could not stop thinking about the unknown dangers outside. The next morning, Mark explained the plan. They would move the camper to a secret location far away, where it could be stripped of its old equipment and made safe. Karen and her family would travel with the DEA agents to the new site as they prepared to leave. Karen noticed a black SUV parked nearby. It was the same kind of vehicle she had seen following her before. Mark's team quickly moved her family inside, but the feeling of being watched stayed strong. On the road, the convoy moved carefully, taking back roads and avoiding highways. Karen held her children close, trying to keep them distracted with songs and stories. Suddenly, the convoy slowed down. Ahead, a group of men blocked the road. They were armed and looked ready to stop them. Mark quickly took charge. Using a radio, he called for backup. The situation was tense, and Karen felt fear creeping in, but she knew they had to stay calm. The men tried to force the convoy to stop, but the DEA agents were prepared. A few moments later, more police cars arrived, surrounding the roadblock. The armed men realized they were trapped and slowly backed away. Karen let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The convoy moved forward safely. After this close call, the group arrived at a hidden warehouse. It was far from the city and surrounded by tall fences. Inside, the camper was carefully examined. Technicians began removing the old equipment, making sure everything was handled with care. Karen watched as they worked. She was amazed at the technology hidden inside the camper. There were small machines for testing substances, secret cameras, and even communication devices that looked like they belonged in a spy movie. Mark explained that years ago, his agents used the camper to follow criminals and collect evidence. But over time, the camper was forgotten in a messy investigation, and no one knew where it had gone. Karen felt a mix of pride and sadness. pride that she had helped recover something important, and sadness that such a valuable tool had been lost for so long. As the days passed, Karen and her family stayed in the safe house near the warehouse. The children made friends with other families in similar situations, and Karen learned more about the work the DEA does. One evening, while Karen was talking with David, Mark came with new information. "We believe the men who tried to stop us on the road are part of a group that wants the campers' technology. They want to use it for their own gain." Karen was shocked. "Why would they want it? Isn't it old?" Mark smiled sadly. "Sometimes old things are very valuable. The campers' hidden compartments could hold clues or equipment that still help criminals. We must make sure it does not fall into their hands." Karen nodded, understanding the importance of her role in all this. Then, something unexpected happened. Karen received a call from James, the man who had lent her the camper. He was worried and wanted to know if she was safe. Karen smiled and said, "I'm safe, but it's been the strangest vacation ever." James laughed softly. "I had no idea what was hidden in that camper. I'm glad you and your family are okay." Karen promised to tell him everything when this was over. Meanwhile, the tension grew. The DEA increased security and Karen's family stayed inside more often. Karen wished she could take her children outside to play freely, but knew it was too dangerous one day, while Karen was helping to organize supplies. She noticed strange activity around the warehouse. A few men were watching from a distance, trying to be careful but obvious to trained eyes. Karen told Mark immediately. He called for backup, and security was tightened. Karen's heart beat fast. She realized this was more serious than she thought. That night, Karen could not sleep. She thought about the camper, the chase, and the men who wanted it. She felt a mix of fear and courage. She wanted to protect her family no matter what. The next morning, Mark came with a plan. It would finish removing the equipment quickly, and then move the camper to a safe government storage. Karen agreed, but she also asked if she could do something to help. Mark smiled and said, "Your calm and courage have already helped a lot. Just stay strong." Karen took those words to heart. She spent the day helping with small tasks and supporting the team. As the work continued, Karen's family began to feel safer. The children played games, and David cooked meals for everyone. One afternoon, the team found a hidden compartment in the camper that had not been discovered before. Inside were old documents and photos from past DEA cases. Karen looked at the pictures, feeling connected to a world she had never known. She thought about how one small camper had so many stories inside. The team carefully collected everything. Mark said, "This will help us understand more about the past and keep people safe in the future." Finally, after days of work, the camper was empty of all secret equipment. It was just an ordinary vehicle again. Karen felt a mix of relief and sadness. The camper had lost its secrets, but the adventure had changed her forever. Mark thanked Karen and her family for their help and bravery. He promised they would return home soon, safe and sound. Karen smiled, thinking of her normal life waiting for her. She knew she would never forget the strange vacation that began with borrowing a camper and ended with helping the DEA protect important secrets. Karen thought the hardest part of the adventure was behind her, but soon she realized the danger was not over. After the camper was emptied of all secret equipment, the DEA still had to keep it safe. They planned to store it in a secure place, but the rival group that wanted the camper's secrets was still out there, watching and waiting. One morning, as Karen and her family were preparing to leave the safe house, the phone rang. Mark answered quickly. His face grew serious. "Found us," he said quietly. "The rival group knows where we are." Karen's heart pounded. She looked at her husband and children. "We have to be ready," she said firmly. Mark explained that the rival group was dangerous and would try anything to get the camper or the information it once held. They would need help from more agents and police. The DEA called in backup. Soon, the safe house was surrounded by officers. Karen's family was moved to a more secure room. The children were scared but stayed close to their parents. Hours later, there was a loud noise outside. Karen looked out the window and saw several dark vehicles speeding toward the house. The rival group was attacking. Mark and the agents were ready. They quickly locked the doors and windows. Karen held her children. close and whispered, "We are safe. The police are here." The sound of sirens grew louder. The rival group's cars stopped outside, but they could not get inside. The police surrounded them and began to arrest the men. Karen felt relief wash over her. The danger was real, but she was grateful for the protection. After the attack, Mark sat with Karen. "This is why we had to remove the equipment and keep the camper safe. It's more valuable than you thought." Karen nodded. "I never imagined borrowing a camper could bring so much trouble." Out. Mark smiled gently. "You were brave. Your family is lucky to have you." The days that followed were quieter. The rival group was arrested and the DEA secured all the camper's secrets. Karen's family could finally relax. Before they left the safe house, Karen took one last look at the camper. It looked empty and normal, but she knew its story was far from ordinary. James called again. Karen told him everything: the chase, the secret equipment, the danger. James was amazed. "I'm so glad you are safe," he said. Karen laughed softly. "This was no ordinary vacation, but it taught me that life can surprise you in many ways." David hugged Karen and said, "We made it through together. That's what matters." As they traveled home, Karen thought about the journey. The camper had brought danger, but also courage and strength. She felt proud of her family and the friends who helped them. When they reached their town, Karen and James met to talk. James promised to be more careful with his vehicles. Karen thanked him for trusting her. The camper was sold to a collector who understood its history. Karen felt happy knowing its secrets were safe. Life slowly returned to normal. Karen's family shared the story with close friends, careful to keep the sensitive parts secret. It became a tale of adventure and bravery. Karen learned that sometimes the most ordinary things hide the greatest surprises. And in those moments, courage can shine brightest. After the dangerous events settled down, Karen and her family were finally able to go back to their normal lives. The memories of the camper and the chase stayed with them, but the fear slowly faded. Karen felt thankful that everyone was safe and that the story had a good ending. When Karen returned home, she took time to rest and think about everything that had happened. It was hard to believe that a simple camper van, something many people see as just a way to travel or camp, had been at the center of such a big adventure. The camper had been more than a vehicle; it was a secret hiding place, a piece of history, and a source of danger. Karen often talked to her husband David about the experience. They both agreed it had changed them. Karen felt stronger and more careful, knowing that sometimes life can surprise you in ways you never expect. David promised to always support her no matter what came next. One day, Karen met with James, the man who had owned the camper before she borrowed it. They sat in a quiet cafe and shared stories. James was amazed to hear about the camper's secret past and the dangers Karen and her family had faced. He laughed when Karen said, "I thought I was just going camping." James told her he had learned a lot from the experience. He promised to be more careful before lending his vehicles to anyone again. Karen smiled and said, "It's okay. Without that camper, I never would have had such an exciting story to tell." The camper was sold to a collector who cared for old vehicles and knew about its history. Karen felt happy knowing it was in good hands and that its secrets were finally safe. She imagined the camper resting quietly, far away from danger. Karen's family slowly returned to their regular routines. The children went back to school and told their friends about the cool camper they had traveled in, but they did not mention the secret parts. Karen was proud of how brave they had been during the difficult times. Sometimes Karen would think about Agent Mark and the D team. She was thankful for their help and their kindness. She knew she had made new friends who cared about keeping people safe. The story of the camper became a special memory for Karen and her family. They shared it with close friends and laughed about how a simple vacation had turned into an adventure. It was a reminder that life is full of surprises. Karen also learned a valuable lesson about trust and caution. Sometimes things are not always what they seem. It's important to be curious but careful and to ask questions when something feels unusual. Looking back, Karen realized how much she had grown. She was no longer just the woman who borrowed a camper for a vacation. She was a protector of secrets, a helper in a serious mission. and a mother who kept her family safe. Karen smiled as she thought about the future. She knew that whatever came next, she would face it with courage and hope. The camper's story had ended, but her own story was just beginning.